is their mode of universal health coverage. Ours was choosing to be NHS. If you'd go to it, they will call it ours is called NHI. If you go to Britain, they will call it NHS. I'm sure you are aware that in America, in the US, there is something called Obamacare or affordable health care. It's exactly America's way of implementing universal health coverage. If you go to other countries, they'll call it NHI. In Mexico, they call it Seguro Popular, meaning a popular scheme for everybody. But I also added that is a third transition of health. That is extremely impactful. Experts believe if we will have achieved a third transition of health ever since human beings started populating this planet, which means there must have been two other transitions that happened in health. Yes, the Lancet, one of the most prestigious medical journals, outlines those transitions. They say the first transition in health took place in the 18th century, and it's called the democratic transition. That's when sewerage, sanitation, clean running water was introduced. It was not done by the Department of Health, but it changed healthcare systems completely around the whole world, such that it is called a transition. The second transition took place in the 20th century. That one is called an epidemiological transition. That's when immunization was introduced to the world, where people don't have to get sick first and die or recover with immunity, where you give them immunity while they are still healthy. That's immunization. And with that, lots of diseases were vanquished, which were exterminating human beings, like smallpox, like polio. Now we are only left with 400 cases of polio around the whole world. Now they say a third transition is in the offing, which is going to change the world, and is the way in which health financing is handled by many countries around the world, and it's called universal health coverage. If it happens, it's going to change healthcare irreversibly, or in a way that you might not even recognize. It's going to be a real transition. That's why we call it a third transition to health, which means we are talking about here something very, very impactful and very, very complex. And I want to warn you, because many people believe this is just something you wake up and do tomorrow. This transition, this third transition or universal health coverage or NHI, is not going to be a sprint. It's going to be a marathon, not an ordinary marathon, an ultra marathon that takes place for a very long time. As you are aware, we said we are going to implement it over a period of 14 years. We are going to divide that 14 years period into 5-5-4. In other words, 3 phases of 5 years, 5 years, and 4 years. And some people still believe that is not even enough. I learned in 2013 that Qatar is going to implement universal health coverage, and they will take 18 months. I rushed to Qatar because we said 14 years and they said 18 months. I rushed to see what miracle are they having. Is it because they've got lots and lots of money? Is it because they've got a small population? I rushed in, make an appointment with the minister. I sat in his office and I said, please, show me the magic. He said, no, there's no magic. We started planning for this thing in 1992. Don't think it's a yesterday's thing. From 1992, we were planning. All that we are doing in that 18 months is to finalize and roll over. There are no shortcuts and there is no magic. So I just want people to know that this is an ultra marathon. Well, it starts by a definition that NHI is a health financing system that pools funds to provide access to quality health for all South Africans based on their health needs and irrespective of their socio-economic status. You are going to find that as number 1 in the paragraph 1 of NHI document. As soon as you receive it, you are going to find that definition. It's a little bit longer than that. There is nothing new in that definition. That's already happening. The medical schemes in the country are pooling funds to provide access to quality health services. There are 2 differences. The medical scheme pool funds for access to quality health services for a select group of individuals. It's not for the whole population. In NHI, we are saying for the whole population. So that's the main difference. The second difference is that the medical schemes provide that pooling of funds for a select group of individuals and they are classed according to their socio-economic status. Those who are regarded to be very rich are having a better medical aid scheme. Those who are regarded to be in the middle are having, until there are some at the bottom of the ladder. In other words, they are stratified according to their socio-economic status. So the new thing in this third transition to healthcare is that you are pulling funds for the whole population. You don't put people according to select groups. Secondly, you don't classify people according to their socio-economic status. You classify them according to their health needs. That's why it's a transition, and that's why it's a revolution, because in South Africa, that has never happened before. When it happened in England 67 years ago, it was definitely a revolution which the British still respect up to today. But we are also showing that this NHI, the method we are using of pulling funds for everybody and not classifying people according to socio-economic status, is the only way that the sustainable development goals of the United Nations can be undertaken. The National Development Plan of South Africa can be undertaken. The African claims of 1943 are mentioning the same thing. The Dr. Henry Klagman Commission of 1944 and the Freedom Charter, all of them written in different languages. But the history of this whole issue of NHI, that there ought to be changes in the way healthcare is financed, started as early as 1928 with the Commission of Old Age Pensions, then the Collins Commission of Inquiry into NHI, then the 1943 African Claims, then Dr. Henry Klagman's National Health Service Commission of 1943 to 1944. That one was the nearest where NHI was nearly implemented in Natal by Professor Kirk and his wife. But 4 years later, when the National Party came into power, that was vanquished and destroyed. But the Freedom Charter also says it. Then after 1994, we restarted again. There were several committees, the Ministerial Committee of Healthcare Finance in 1994, the Ministerial Committee of Inquiry into NHI, 1995, the Bloomberg and Shisana report. This is the same Shisana I've just introduced you to you. In 1995, she also produced that report. Then the other one by Professor Taylor in 2002, etc. Then, in 2007, the conference of the ANC took a decision that we need to start implementing NHI as it is, and we started, and that's why we produced the green paper. So I just want to show you, it has got a very long history. But I'm taking over a few things. The African, what we want to do and what we are going to see in the white paper comes from all these documents, I can assure you. They come from all these documents, the United Nations one, our National Development Plan, our African Claims, the Freedom Charter. All of them, when you go paragraph by paragraph, you realize that we are implementing what all these documents demanded. And I think it's important, at least for me to mention the African claims. You'll remember that the African claims is a group of claims that were put together by leaders of the ANC at that time, who were asked by Dr. Alfred Uma, because President Roosevelt of the United States and Prime Minister Churchill of England were going to sit to adopt the Atlantic Charter, what the world must look like after the Second World War. But Africa was excluded, and there was a belief that we need to put our own claims. Those claims were in every sphere of life, but these are the claims in health. A drastic overhauling and reorganization of the health service of the country, with due emphasis on preventative medicine, with all that implies in modern public health sense, strongly urge the establishment of free medical health services for all sections of the population, the establishment of a system of school medical service with full staff of medical practitioners, nurses and other health visitors, increased hospital and clinic facilities, both in the rural and urban areas, increased facilities for the training of African doctors, dentists, nurses, sanitary inspectors, health visitors, and a coordinated control finance of health services for the whole union. 14 December 1943. Believe you me, most of the things you are going to recognize in the white paper are actually there. And this was done in 1943 when we're still the Union of South Africa, not even the Republic of South Africa. Then from there, 1955, the Freedom Charter, there shall be housing, security, and comfort for all. It says a preventative health scheme shall be run by the state. Free medical care and hospitalization shall be provided for all, with special care for mothers and young children. That's exactly what you are going to see us doing in the white paper. But then let's go to the World Health Organization. In their 1978 conference of Alma Ata, which is popularly known as the Alma Ata Declaration, it said in Declaration 2 that the existing gross inequality in the health status of people, particularly between developed and developing countries, as well as within countries, is politically, socially, and economically unacceptable, and therefore of common concern to all. We are going to try and solve this inequality within our country, because it has been said as far back as 1978 that it's unacceptable. Then our own national development plan, there are 7 things which the national development plan says you must do, starting with life expectancy. But then in the middle, it says by 2030, there shall have been a significant shift in equity, efficiency, effectiveness, and quality of healthcare provisioning. And you are going to be seeing a lot of that in the white paper. A shift in equity, in efficiency, in effectiveness, and quality of healthcare provisioning. Then it says, then there shall be universal health coverage, which is exactly the subject of why we're here today. Then you go to United Nations, September 2015, when they adopted the Sustainable Development Goal. There were 17, as you know. Now, the declaration for all 17 of them, I want to read only 3 paragraphs from that declaration. It has got a big bearing on some of the decisions we took on the white paper. It says, on behalf of the people we serve, we have adopted a historic decision on a comprehensive, far-reaching, and people-centered set of universal and transformative goals and targets. We commit ourselves to working tirelessly for full implementation of this agenda by 2030. As we embark on this great collective journey, we pledge that no one will be left behind. Recognizing that dignity of human person is fundamental, we used to see the goals and targets met for all nations and people and for all segments of society, and we will endeavor to reach the furthest behind. That is a very impactful statement. It implies that in the past, whenever we have got programs, we start at the top with the elite. Now, this one they are saying will endeavor to reach the furthest behind. We are going to go on the queue, go behind and say who is right at the end of the queue in terms of civil delivery and bring them to the fore. We are going to do a lot of that in the white paper. So I want you to understand some of the decisions we are going to be taking. We will be endeavoring to reach the furthest behind, as it was said by the United Nations. Paragraph 3, this is an agenda of unprecedented scope and significance. It is accepted by all countries and is applicable to all, taking into account different national realities, capacities, and levels of development, and respecting national policies and priorities. These are universal goals and targets which involve the entire world, developed and developing countries alike. I want to show, because there's a belief that NHI or universal health coverage is only for rich countries. The United Nations is clearly saying no. Every country must get involved, but we must respect their capacities and their realities. Do it within your reality, but there's nothing that say you can't do it because you are too poor or you can't do it because you are too rich. There's nothing that says that. Then goal number 3.8 says we must achieve universal health coverage, including financial risk protection, access to quality essential healthcare services, and access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicines and vaccines for all. All these documents that I've mentioned, this SDG, the African Claims, the Freedom Charter, the Alma Ata Declaration, the National Development Plan of South Africa, all of them have matched to produce the document that we call the White Paper on Health. And when you read, you'll recognize it in all these documents if you go through them. Today, because of this historic day which the United Nations has mentioned, today, for the first time in history, at UN, they are introducing another impactful health day. You know many days that United Nations are introducing in health. The most important one, you know, is World AIDS Day, which is the 1st of December. You then will know World TB Day, which is the 24th of March. Today, the United Nations is introducing World Universal Health Coverage Day. Universal Health Coverage Day is going to be celebrated every year on the 12th of December on the United Nations calendar in exactly the same way as World AIDS Day and World TB Day. But it is being celebrated today at United Nations because the 12th is a weekend, as you'll know. But the actual day is the 12th. And the World Health Organization in Geneva celebrated it on the 9th, I think. Yes, on the 9th or on the 10th, I'm not very sure, but they've already celebrated it. And so every other year we're going to celebrate it on the 12th. Why the 12th of December? The 12th of December is a day on which in 2012, on the 12th of December in 2012, 92 countries signed a resolution at United Nations that the world must change tune and go towards universal health coverage. So when the SDGs were implemented, it was already on the back of 92 countries who signed that declaration and say we want this universal health coverage because the manner in which healthcare is financed favors only certain sections of the population who are mostly the elite, and the poor are always left behind. So that's what I want you to know, that is now on the calendar. But this whole thing, what is the purpose? Firstly, we need to meet population health needs. Secondly, we need to remove financial barriers to health. But we need to reduce incidence of catastrophic healthcare expenditure. What does catastrophic healthcare expenditure mean? In the white paper, it's a footnote. It explains exactly what it means. There are people who go into poverty because somebody got sick at home. Some of them, we've read them in the press, especially people who are regarded as celebrities who are not expected to become poor. And the media gets very fascinated why this person got poor when this person was a soccer star or a musician or, an athletic star who got prizes. Many of them is because of a concept of catastrophic healthcare expenditure. Somebody got sick at home. They had to sell their assets. They had to to mortgage their houses. Just to give a good example, the recent treatment of breast cancer is R500,000. If your wife gets that and they want R500,000 and you want her to live, what are you going to do? That's the example I can give. Or if your husband is in the ICU, after 6 months, the bill is already 800,000 rand. What are you going to do? It's catastrophic healthcare expenditure. It is said to be, the Secretary General of United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, says it happens to 150 million people around the world annually, who the United Nations did not regard as poor, but after somebody got sick at home, they get reclassified as poor. That's what is called catastrophic healthcare expenditure. Now, Dr. Margaret Chan, the Director General of the World Organization, outlined 7 structural problems of healthcare, which this universal health coverage must come and solve. And she says every country must look at these problems and see if they occur in their country and solve them. Rising healthcare costs, yet poor access to essential medicines, an emphasis on cure that leaves prevention by the wayside. I'm happy that the documents I read before are emphasizing on prevention. Dr. Margaret Chan says it's no longer happening. The world has moved on to a curative direction, which is expensive and does not produce results. Then she says there's also costly private health care for the privileged few, but second-rate care for everybody else. In South Africa, we know the figures. The problem there, she's saying, is not that, she's not saying the problem is private health care. She says costly. The problem is that it's costly and it's for the privileged few, while everybody else is getting second-rate care. Do we know the numbers in South Africa? Yes. Who's getting costly private health care and is counted as the privileged few? Well, I'm one of them because I've got a medical aid. I'm counting the privileged few. And we are only 8 million in the country. The other 43 million are getting second-rate care, and that cannot be good at all. It's one of the issues that we must resolve, that you can't put 8 million people on good, costly private health care when 42 million people are getting second-rate care. It can be They are the people who tell medical schemes what to do and what not to do. But the providers, that means the GPs, the private hospitals, the specialists, they've got no law whatever country that regulates them. If today you arrive in a private hospital, they tell you they want 100,000 rand deposit, and I'm talking about figures that have been quoted. If you don't have it, they say we can't treat you. Nobody can do anything, including the minister. People phone me because they believe I can do something. I get phoned early hours of the morning, a mother who says, I've got a baby here with a temperature of 40. I'm at the gate of the private hospital, minister. They say they want 20,000 rand deposit. Can you help? They believe I can help. Some even have medical aids, and the hospital just tell them, no, we don't want your medical aid. Pay us cash, you'll go and claim from them. No, but I don't have money. Okay, fine, but we are not taking that medical aid. We want cash now, 20,000 rand on the table. There is absolutely nothing can do. There are a lot of patients who have been removed from ICU, and I can give you the list if you demand, who have been removed from ICU while they still need ICU, or even sometimes still in coma, where they just say, we found the medical scheme, the money is finished, you need to go to a public hospital. And people have to be taken to the public hospital. This has happened many times. I know it for sure as Steve Biko. As you know, I receive my So we have got somebody who's getting an underdose, but you also have somebody on top who's getting an overdose. In medical terms, both an underdose and an overdose kills. When I was trained as a doctor, I was told that if somebody gets an underdose, he's not going to survive. But if you get an overdose, you are also going to die. Now we need to equalize this system. We can't have people getting more than what they want when others cannot get exactly what they need. That is the first problem. The second problem, let's start with the private sector. I'm showing you here prices. You'll see something that we have to change, and we've been told many times to change. The prices of services in South Africa are very close to the United States prices. Why United States? I need to be very careful because Dr. Sarah Baba, while he's a country director of the Wealth Organization in South Africa, she comes from the United States. So I must be careful what I'm saying about a country. The fact remains, it's a well-known fact. The United States healthcare system is the most expensive in the whole world, but it does not necessarily produce good results. It is now at 18% of the gross domestic product. On average, all the European countries are still at 9%. The United States is already at 18%. Countries like China are still at, China is still at 4.6% of the GDP. Russia is still at 5.4%. India is still at 4.6%. European countries are at 9%. United States is at 19%. Why am I mentioning it? Because what we are doing in South Africa is just following what the United States is doing. You are going to see graphs here that puts us at the same level as United States, starting here with the pricing. If you check these prices, South Africa is always next to United States. If you check that one is United States, the highest, second South Africa, meaning it's more expensive than all those other countries there. CT scan, pelvis, same thing. If I go through the whole system, you'll see that. Then there was an argument that no, this is not a good comparison. We are being very unfair. Prices of commodities go in terms of the incomes of the country, what we call the gross household income. If we do it, the pricing of healthcare in South Africa in terms of the gross household income, South Africa becomes that red one. You can see we are second to United States. Here, we have even overtaken the United States. Here, we have even overtaken the United States. Here, we are second to them. Here, Then there was an argument that maybe we are being unfair. The gross household income we are mentioning on the red bar there is for the whole population. And they say it's unfair because these prices is what is paid by people on medical aid scheme. You can't include the whole population. Then it was adjusted to only members of medical aid scheme. It produces the yellow bar, which is still very high, as you can see. So we are saying we are running here a very expensive healthcare system. Then the other problem is this. This gentleman gave me this invoice, said I must wrap off his names, but he instructed me to teach people. This person went to a private hospital. He was charged 19,000 rand, as you can see at the bottom there. After everything was itemized, 19,000 rand. But the medical schemes only paid 5,000, and this person had to pay 13,000 rand. That is called a core payment. And it happens to many South Africans very silently on medical aids, where you have got a medical aid, you are paying a premium every month, but your medical scheme pay 5,000 when you owe 19,000. And the 13,000 is demanded from you. I've got a gentleman who complained that he was being forced to auction his house to pay for something like that. This is called payment. And in the universal health coverage, they say we must do away with it because it puts people into poverty. Now, these are the prices. These are the prices that, the letters of complaints that have been laid with me. Since people heard about universal health coverage, 18,000 rand for a DNC, that's a dilatation of and curettage, the cleaning of somebody's womb, a 5-minute procedure, 30,000 rand for a draining of a perianal abscess. That has been put me on trial because they did it to the Deputy Director General of the Wealth Organization of the African region. She's now the Director of Wealth Organization in Africa. This lady visited South Africa some 3 years ago, took this child. She thought all hospitals are the same because in the countries where she comes from, it's like that. And she was given a bill of 30,000 rand. She sent it to me and said, no, Minister, what do you want me to do with this thing? It can't be allowed. This lady here charged 67,000 rand, got involved in a car accident, went to a hospital for checkup. She got in the hospital walking. They put her through every available machine in the hospital. When they finished, they said, "You are not injured anywhere, go home, but you owe us 67,000 rand. This lady brought it to me and said, "Minister, what should I do? I mean, I went for a checkup because I thought I might be bleeding inside, and which is good. But now I owe 67,000 rand, which must be charged on my medical aid." This is a patient from Swaziland who was charged 500,000 rand for a peritoneal, laparatomy for a peritoneal abscess. Hospital fees, 23,000 rand for the surgeon, 3,000 rand for the anesthetist. Why did I know about it? The Swaziland government medical aid scheme paid. They paid this amount, but they were written an email that they want an extra 700,000 rand. That's why they sent it to me. Unfortunately, this patient died before they paid 700,000, but they had paid the 500 plus the 23,000 plus the 3,000. As a result, Swaziland has negotiated with us that they can no longer use private healthcare in South Africa, no matter how good it is. Their country will collapse. So they've signed with us. They are using Steve Biko and Charlotte Maxeke Hospital, and they are paying us, and we are evaluating. The bad news, all the SADC ministers asked me last month in a SADC meeting that they need the same service. They can no longer afford to send people private healthcare service in South Africa because their budgets are collapsing. They can't cope. And I did not give them an answer because it's going to be a very difficult thing to carry the whole of SADC. I said some of the practices are bordering on criminality. Here is the 20,000 rand was a quotation for a child who has got a problem of a tooth, and they wanted to do a procedure called a root canal treatment, where you remove the nerve and the tooth is dead. I've got one such a dead tooth. The nerve has been removed, but I'm an old man, I don't mind. This was a 10-year-old girl. And let me confess, it happened to my own daughter. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it when I was told that she's going to be done a root canal treatment. Why do I call it criminal? Not only the amount, the 20,000 you can pay it once off is okay. But because she has got these are milk teeth, they are going to come out. Yes, if you do a root canal, you remove the nerve. When the milk tooth comes out and a new tooth grows in, for the rest of her life, she won't have a nerve there, she'll have a dead tooth. Because somebody wanted 20,000 rand. The actual treatment was just removal of that tooth, which cost us 200 rand in a public hospital. Just remove it, that was the end of the story. She's 14 years now, she's okay. She has got all her nerves. Why am I bringing it here? What would have happened if it was somebody's daughter who doesn't understand these things? Who doesn't have the resources to deal with these things? What will have happened? How many people's daughters are experiencing this on everyday basis because somebody wants 20,000 rand? That's why I call it criminal. I was told to pause because the screen for Cape Town, there's something happening. What is that? From the beginning. Should I start from the beginning? I know everybody would like to kill me if I say that. Why don't you negotiate with them that they'll see it later? We'll send them a copy. I mean, you know what I mean. Time, Can't we negotiate with them to bear with us? I don't know. I know I'm being unfair to them, but well, if you say so. Guys.
There's something touching on the president. There was a mic.
Can I start? Rather continue. Yes. Now, this is the problem in the private healthcare sector. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the problems of the healthcare system is the private sector. It's not. In fact, if you read the NDP, they are clearly outlining that South Africa's healthcare system is faced with two problems. Number one, the exorbitant fees in the private healthcare sector. Number two, the problems of quality in the public healthcare sector. So these are two problems. What I've shown you are private sector problems. They've got good quality, there's efficiency, but the prices are unaffordable for the whole population, if I may say, or for most people in the population. Now we go to problems in the public sector. My understanding, and it's my understanding, which people might argue with, is that all the problems in the public sector, most of which you have reported about in the media, you can summarize them into four. There are four main problems. Anything you read about the media, there's a problem here, there's a problem there, this and that didn't happen, are in those four categories. The first one is the issue of human resources. Wrong people being appointed in wrong places, patronage and cronyism, poor planning, development, and management of human resources. That's a very big problem. Financial management, unfavorable outcomes except at national and 3 provinces, which happened in the current financial year. Procurement or supply chain, where the simplest of equipment and devices are unavailable or out of order for long periods of time, absence of most essential medicine and drugs due to corruption or non-payment of pharmaceutical companies. That's not always the case, but it happens. Huge tenders issued for non-essential equipment that brings wrong procurement choices. Infrastructure, poor or non-existent maintenance of infrastructure, collapse of essential infrastructure due to corrupt procurement practices, and poor workmanship in the construction of the new infrastructure. In the new health platform of NHI, all these problems will need to be solved, and they are going to be solved extensively. Otherwise, we can never tell the country in the world that will ever have NHI. So as we solve the problems in the private sector, we need to solve this also in the public sector. Now, what happened to Africa in the post-colonial era? If you start with Ghana, in 1957, Kwame Nkrumah took over Ghana as the new president after liberation. He immediately put up a free medical system for Ghana, which collapsed. And 50 years later, they are implementing NHI. Then you go to Angola in 1975 with Agostinho Neto. Angola started as a socialist state. When they changed to market economics, they never changed in health up to today. The health system in Angola is still run like you do in a socialist state, whereas the rest of the country is run according to market dictates. But the problem is that health system is still in trouble. Then came our own Tata Nelson Mandela in South Africa. 1996, free health care for pregnant women and for children under 6. And if you go to many parts of the country, it will be doubtful that they will actually celebrate that. What is the problem? The Director General of World Organization in Africa called ministers of health and finance to look into this issue. And the conclusion reached was that the reason that in Africa these programs don't seem to be working is because in Africa we did not start at the foundation. And what is the foundation? It's strengthening the capacities of public healthcare infrastructure to provide effective, safe, and quality health services. And infrastructure in this case doesn't mean buildings only. It means staffing, which I called HR there, buildings, technologies, utilities such as power and water supply, waste management, transport and communication, and financing investments, maintenance, and recurring costs. Coincidentally, the 4 things I've mentioned here, Harvard University has got a unit which they call Harvard Global for Global Health. In June, when they called ministers of health there for lectures, we usually go there every year. Ministers of health in Africa, the Far East, and Latin America, they usually call to Harvard. This year, they released the results of their studies. What are the common features of countries in Africa, in the Far East, in Latin America, countries which has got poor quality in healthcare? What is the common thread there? And they came across all this. Human resources was put as number 1, but they didn't have financial management. They put it as procurement and supply chain. Of course, they didn't include infrastructure, but they said these 3 are common in Africa, in the Far East, in Latin America. When you find the healthcare system not working, you know that it's a problem of human resources, as I've outlined it there. It's a problem of procurement, it's a problem of supply chain, and said all those countries need to improve those areas. So I just want to show you that we are going to do that. Now, we have identified these problems. I was jokingly saying if I were to be invited to Europe to talk about health and I speak about this and say the problems is infrastructure, staffing, buildings, technologies, power supply, water, waste management, I'm sure before I finish the sentence, they are likely to call a psychiatrist immediately. Because, yes, to them, they believe this is standard. You can't run a healthcare system without this, is standard. But believe you me, in Africa, it's something else. And then we have got a problem. When heads of states are sick in Africa, they can't get healthcare from their own countries because of this. They must go to Europe, to the Far East, or to the United States of America. I raised this issue at the World Health Organization African region when we were discussing Ebola, that until such time that heads of states on this continent stay in their own countries for treatment, they all recognize these problems. They all know they exist. They must stay and be treated there and see that in a normal hospital, all these things are not happening, and understand that is because of this and how to change this. So we are not going to be leaving this alone. We are going to be dealing with it one by one. Otherwise, we won't be observing what the National Development Plan said we must observe. And Africa must better do this, or else we'll remain and I suspect we are the only continent. We are the only continent where the heads of states, or most of the heads of states, cannot be treated in their own countries because the healthcare system there is not adequate. I don't think universal health coverage will accept that, and should we ever tolerate it, and we must say it very, very openly. Now, in following this, we sent engineers during the pilot. When we were piloting NHI, we sent engineers to check, and I'm giving you what they checked in only 4 provinces. They went to each and every facility. So as I'm sitting here, I've got this report for 700 health facilities in 10 pilot districts. There are 700 facilities. Each one of them has been checked engineering-wise from the roof, the ceiling, to see how far is South Africa suffering from this problem, which was identified by the World Organization. And they said, because, Minister, you are not an engineer, we'll put them we'll color code them. Red means bad, replace. Amber means massive refurbishment. Green means it just needs routine maintenance. This is Vembe district, which is a pilot in Limpopo. You can see the amber there is very predominant, meaning there was no maintenance for quite a long time. There's a serious backlog. This is Vembe. This is, your screen is not reaching up there, unfortunately, but yes. This is Kartibande in Mpumalanga, which is also a pilot district. This is Thaba Mfuzanyani in the Free State, the former Kwakwa homeland. It has got lots of greens. The problems there was that Kwakwa was the smallest homeland in the country, so the clinics are very small. And we have got the job of expanding them for the whole population. It's a big job because all of them are small for a small homeland of that era. Now we are in the new South Africa. This is OR Tambo and in the Eastern Cape, as you can see. You see a similarity between this, which was an independent homeland, and this, which is another independent homeland. The red there means we are going to do a massive replacement of facilities. We have already started. There are 3 hospitals there here, who in terms of this needs to be completely replaced. There are 3 clinics. We have already started them, by the way. We have already started those 3 clinics. But how did you arrive at all these problems in both the private and the public sector? How did we arrive? Let's start with the private sector. There is an argument that things have to be expensive. I still want a scientist or economist who must explain what I'm going to show you here. I never understood it. There are many emotional arguments, but if our country is to get out of this morass, I need an explanation of what I'm going to show you. If you go back to 1996, you'll find that in the private healthcare sector, there were a lot of independent hospitals. They are represented by that green. Many of them were affordable. Even people with medical aids could save money and go there to get services. Then there was Netcare, then there was Life Health, then there was Mediclinic. That's how the situation was. Then in 1998, they did something called market concentration. If you ask economists or people in business, they'll tell you, market concentration is when you destroy the small ones by making it difficult for them to stay in business using various means. You absorb them, or you offer them some sums of money to get out of the business so that you remain alone. Once you do that, you build big conglomerates, which are very big, and they dictate the prices because they now become huge monopolies. And after 10 years of studying this market concentration, this was the private health scene in South Africa. This is 2006, which means now it might be worse, but I'm just telling you it took 10 years for South Africa's private sector to change because of market concentration. What was the change? The independents were wiped off. As you can see, they are very small. Netcare bulged. Life Health bulged, as did Mediclinic. Then what's wrong with that? Why should it bother a Minister of Health? Why should it bother South Africans? Maybe it's a good thing. The problem is this. We went back to 1990. What was the cost of, how much money, what was the real cost trends in private hospitals? We found that from 1990, 25 years ago, it was moving along these lines. This line is moving in terms of inflation. There's nothing wrong with it. And it should have continued that way. We wouldn't have been having problems. But unfortunately, that did not happen. It did not happen because in 1998, it just shot high. You can see that red arrow. Are the prices going high, like an aeroplane taking off, After it has been on the, after it has been taking for a long time, it just takes off immediately into the sky. That's what happened to us. It's not something that happened gradually. And unfortunately, the public does not even notice that. They believe things were normally like that. It just took off in 1998, and it's still going skywards. It's not stopping. It's still going higher and higher and higher. We then went back to 1988. We went back to 1988, not 25 years ago now, but some 27 years ago, and looked at what was happening. If you run any business, whether it's in health or what, you make profits, loss, profit, loss. The red color is the cost of running a private hospital. The blue one is a return on investment or simply profits. In any normal business, it's profits, loss, profit, loss, profit, loss. That happened from 1988. We don't have figures from previous year. But from 1998, you can see for the whole period of 10 years, there was profit, loss, profit, loss, profit, loss. Suddenly, after 10 years in 1998, because of market concentration, things just went haywire. You saw there, Is somebody sabotaging me? Oh, yes. Yes. You saw there, that arrow coinciding with market concentration is profit, 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 profit. What are the results? Maybe you will say, I'm jealous, but what are the results? Everybody, literally everybody, wants to own a private hospital in South Africa. We have got 1,000 applications for private hospitals in the country. Because people say, this is money, man. You can't get that money in mining, you can't get it in ICT, you can't get it. Why so much money for sick people? Because when you are allowed to die, anything they want you to pay, you are going to pay. So what is wrong with 1,000 applications? They will outnumber public hospitals 3:1. Will be a country where private hospitals outnumber public hospitals 3:1. Why are they chasing them? Because of this. IDC, PIC, National Empowerment Fund, Development Bank, all of them will tell you funding is wanted for these private hospitals. How many more people can be treated in them with so much, with medical schemes already collapsing because of the weight of these prices? But this is how South Africa is today. And this is up to 2007. It's going higher and higher and higher. Then there was a problem with the Competition Commission in 2004. These prices were negotiated through an organization called REMS, where doctors, SAMA, private hospital, pharmacies were coming together to negotiate prices. It was not perfect, but it was better. In 2004, the Competition Commission said, no, you can no longer do this, it's price fixing. That also contributed to the problem. But remember, after this market concentration, when this was happening, all these big three, excluding the independent, they all went to register on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I want to say this, and I'm going to repeat it many times. The word stock exchange and health provisioning can never exist in the same sentence. It's impossible. The word stock exchange and healthcare provisioning can never exist in the same sentence because it's a very clear contradiction of Section 27 of the Constitution that put healthcare as a right. The stock exchange works on the basis of profits and super profit. And everybody going there is looking for super profit, not for service whatsoever in the true sense. Anybody who goes to invest on the stock exchange wants profits. If the area where you invested there's no profit, you remove your money immediately. Doesn't matter how many people are going to suffer. You remove it and put it elsewhere. And now if it is put in health, you get this type of problems I've mentioned. It is one thing for a pharmaceutical company to be on the stock exchange. It's one thing. But it's another for the person who's providing the real health care, who gives you the injections and the oxygen and the medicine to save you, to go onto the stock exchange and forget everything about health and use stock exchange rules, because that's what is going on. All these prices are stock exchange rules, because if you don't perform on the stock exchange, you are out. And here the performance is how many patients you charge and how much you charge them. That's how it gets the performance. If it was in mining, the performance is on producing more platinum or producing more gold or doing overtime to produce more. But if it is in health, the productivity is how many patients you charge and how much you charge them. And that's why they get removed while they are still in coma. If there is no money, because the stock exchange cannot allow those rules. You can't say, no, this person is in coma and the money is finished and it's not going to pay. Otherwise, you'll be out of the stock exchange. So the solution, if you want to stay there, remove the patient. If he goes to die, it's none of your business. Unfortunately, that's what we are faced with in the country. And there's no way. In the NHI, we are going to change it. Where is the money going to? I want to show you this because you are going to see very drastic changes in the white paper. We used 2010 as an example. I can use any year, but the 2010 example is the best. Where is the money going to? In 2010, South Africa's 8 million people who are on medical aids contributed a total of 84.7 billion rand. That means it's the amount of money that was collected in the form of premiums. Where did that money go to? 30.8 billion went to private hospitals, 19 billion to specialists, 14 billion to pharmaceutical companies. The GPs, and I want to emphasize this, because we are proposing a drastic change in the white paper. the GPs, these are doctors who are providing primary health care at the village level, at the township level, in small shops, corner shops and corner garages and all that, wherever they find space. And usually, for ages, they provide health care at the private health care level, which even some elderly people can afford because they charge them a fixed fee. You may find an old person who is on a social grant able to go and see that doctor. But now, why am I mentioning this? They are getting out of the system, bit by bit. I'm challenging you to go to your village. Go to find all the GPs you know since your childhood and tell me how many are left. They are being wiped off. Why? Out of 84.7 billion, they got only 6 billion rand. The poor GPs. Why is that happening? I don't want to be seen to be brutal to medical aids. I'm just talking the truth. When these prices I've shown you escalate, the medical schemes feel the pressure, very big pressure. And they too, they need to survive. The stock exchange is weighing heavily on them. And they need to survive. And they looked into the system to find, how do we survive? And according to me, they identified two groups on which they are going to survive. The first one is the patient. You reduce the benefits of the patient bit by bit, or you tell them to pay a lot of core payments, or you tell them certain things you can't pay for. That's what medical schemes are doing. I'm not their spokesperson, but they are doing that to survive. The onslaught on prices is very heavy on many medical aid schemes. That's why some of them are collapsing. So they targeted the patient. They say, this is the weaker person. Then among the providers, they can't challenge the private hospitals. They are too strong for them. They can't challenge the stock exchange. So they target the GPs. Because the GP is working alone in a corner shop. He's an independent person. They target them for non-payment of all the fees. That's why they are getting 6.2 billion. They are getting less money than even the bottom group of people who are called non-health care providers. You are providing primary health care as a GP. Somebody who's called non-health care is getting double what you are getting. What is non-health care? Why should 11 billion rand go? Who are these people in non-health care who are getting more money than even the GPs? Even if you go to 1997, you'll see that. In 1997, that blue dotted line is the amount of money that medical aids were collecting. As you can see, from 1998, that money just jumped high. When the premiums were going high, because of market concentration, you can see that it was money that was moving that way very flat. In 1998, it just shot high and started going to the sky. The amount of money that were, that's when the premiums were being increased because of the high prices, because of market concentration. And then from there, the line that follows, the brown one, shows that almost everything that is collected is equivalent to everything that goes to private hospital. The other people, the specialists, the pharmaceutical companies, others are all below, and the GPs are there at the bottom, the people who are providing primary health care. In the NHI pilot, we are going to bring a drastic change to that state of affairs, because otherwise we won't have a primary health care in the country. If those people are handled in the way that is happening, then this is money for administration. The top blocks there, the brown block shows the amount of money per beneficiary per month that is used for administration. You can see GEMS is the one that is using very little money there for administration. The blue blocks are showing the number of people in the schemes. As you can see, the biggest scheme is Discovery, followed by GEMS in this case, and followed by others. But we are saying, why should GEMS use only 1/3 of the administration fee when the others are using that much? There is something wrong with it. And we believe it's because in terms of the Medical Aid Act, medical aids are not profit-making, but administrators are allowed to make profit. So all the money is being pushed to administrators in order for profits to be realized, unfairly so. Then there is a group of people called brokers. In the insurance industry, you know there are brokers who mobilize you to join a particular insurance company. We have got this problem in healthcare. In 1998, before market concentration, you can see the brokers were right there at the bottom. Not many of them. But after market concentration in 1998, they just started shooting up. They increased by 800%. Now, here is the problem. For the past 10 years, the number of medical scheme people doesn't increase. It doesn't change. So what are who are the brokers recruiting? The numbers remain the same for 10 years. So what they do, they just change you from one medical scheme to the other. And as they do that, they get a commission. And that commission totals 1.5 billion rand in South Africa, just to change you from one scheme to the other. So there is this movement every year. No, you see, this scheme doesn't offer this. When you are pregnant, this one will offer that. Let's change you. No. Now, they keep on changing people at the cost of 1.5 billion. We don't need that in NHI. We absolutely don't need it. Why should people be recruited? Because NHI is supposed to be for the whole population. We want that money to serve health. Consequences to all these things, to medical schemes, is that the medical scheme premiums are increasing at more than CPEX. The benefits are dropping very fast. Even measures like prescribed minimum benefit have worsened the situation. There was a debate in the media about prescribed minimum benefits. They've made the situation worse, much worse than it was. And we are aware that many people are starting to diagnose diseases under PMBs, which means they are just pushing a disease to become a PMB because they want to be paid in full, which in essence is some form of fraud, actually, if I may put it that way, because you are giving a wrong diagnosis because somebody wants to be paid in full. Then we've got workers demanding higher medical aid subsidies in a failed endeavor to stem the situation. You saw what happened in the recent negotiations with workers. They demanded 28% salary increment because they read the situation as the employer not giving me enough money. They are not aware that it's exorbitant prices. And the private and public employers have paid. I want to repeat that. Private employers, public employers have paid enough subsidy for medical aid premiums. They are not paying less. They are paying more and more. And the situation is not improving. And we want to relieve them. Whether you are government or a private employer, the medical aid subsidy is exorbitant. It's too much. But the workers read it as protecting them. They are not aware that the money just comes in and go out the other way. And that's what the problem is with medical schemes are experiencing. The other problem is that their numbers are decreasing. If you look at this graph, 2005, we had 131 medical schemes. We are now left with 83. By 2014, they are going down because most of them, after increasing the premiums, after reducing the benefits, they still can't cope. Even powerful medical schemes like PARMED, and I need to confess and disclose, I am on PARMED. It's one of the most expensive medical schemes in the country for members of parliament and judges. For your information, I'm paying 14,000 rand per month on that medical aid scheme. But my benefits got finished in October. I've got no benefits, I'm paying cash now. You can go and check, yes. Many members of parliament and judges are paying in the vicinity of that amount, but the benefits are finished, gone. I've got no benefits, and as you know, it has been written many times in the media. I don't attend any private hospital. I only go to Steve Biko, which doesn't charge exorbitant fees, but my benefits are finished. I checked with my colleagues. Many members of parliament say their benefits are over. I then checked with some colleagues in Discovery. I'm mentioning Parliament and Discovery. They are the highest. Many of them, their benefits ended in August. Why? Because the medical schemes have to survive. They have to stop the benefits, otherwise they'll go under. They are stopping this trend, which means even without NHI, if we allow this situation for the next 10 years, there will be no medical scheme left in the country. Register, am I telling the truth or not? There's Dr. Zogufa here, tell me. Am I not telling the truth? The chairperson of Board of Healthcare Funders. For the next 10 years, there will be no medical scheme left in the country if this trend is allowed to continue. So somehow in the white paper, we need to stem this trend. It's not very good for the country. Of very high-paying medical schemes where people pay exorbitant premiums, but the benefits get finished. That's why I have to confess my own situation. I'm sorry to be personal, but I want to demonstrate it that this is not theory. It happens to living people. Even those who, according to Margaret Chan, are supposed to be a privileged few. Even them, they are down on their knees now at the present moment. So the situation cannot be allowed to go on. What are the global trends in healthcare financing? What are the global trends? Every year, the World Health Organization puts what is called health accounts data set. That means they put the amount of money used for healthcare in each and every country. They put that in tables. These tables have been there at WHO. They were meaning nothing. I'm happy to announce that one of our own, South Africa, contributes a lot to the world, even though we undermine ourselves. Those tables have been there at WHO every year, but they were not meaning much. Until one of our own, Professor Di McIntyre, she's the head of Department of Health Economics at University of Cape Town. She took those tables and turned them into graphs. For the first time in the history of the health accounts data set, those graphs are speaking a language which even you, not being in health, when I say even you, I'm not undermining you. It simply means you are not health economist. You report news, but you'll understand that. It's a very, very impactful thing. Then she divided the money for each country into three. The first amount she called mandatory prepayment, meaning pay for health before the person is sick. It's mandatory if it is a law of that country. Like in Britain, the NHS is a mandatory prepayment of health, the national health system in England. Most of the universal health coverage system are going to be like that. So as you can see, the blue bars there represent mandatory prepayment of health. The red, they represent voluntary. Voluntary means medical aid. I'm just using generic terms for the whole world. Voluntary prepayment of health means medical aid. It's red. The green means cash. Out of pocket means cash. Now it's showing in every country what's happening. As you can see, I'm again repeating, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Most of the European countries are moving towards mandatory prepayment of health. That's universal health coverage. Even if you go to the developing countries in Latin America, you can see that. The voluntary prepayment and out of pocket, you see it predominantly in these two countries. So this group of countries there that are developed, these ones are developing, these ones in the middle, I'm sorry, these ones. These two, I don't know what they are doing. I can't describe it. When you put United States and South Africa together, but they are doing the same thing. Their predominant method of payment for health is voluntary, means it's cash and medical aid. But the rest of the world is not moving in that direction. It's completely moving in the opposite direction. Then comes Africa, which I call a disaster. The disaster of Africa. If you can see there, even the medical aid provisioning is in South Africa and a few neighbors like Namibia and Botswana, which I think we are teaching them bad manners. They are learning bad manners from us because they are only ones who are doing that. But what is the disaster here? You see, here is Europe, where individuals and families are better off. Individuals and families are better off. But when they are sick, their country is taking care of them via mandatory prepayment, the blue. In Africa, where individuals and families are not protected and they are very poor, when they are sick, in the diaspora, they may have to pay cash. You can see the green part is very predominant. You have to pay cash every time you are sick. But you are poor and you are unprotected. It is not an accident to see this. I'm sure you recognize this. This country is Sierra Leone. You know what happened there recently. It's not an accident. It's because everything there, the citizens must pay cash, the green part. Remember, mandatory prepayment includes the budget of health. So it means the government is only contributing this much. All this must come from pocket of individuals who are sick, who are poor. This is Guinea. So you can see what is happening on the African continent. That's why I call it a disaster in the making. And that's why I'm insisting the leaders must stay here to solve this problem. They must not run to Europe or America. It's not something that must be allowed anymore. South Africa is the odd one out. The OECD, Organization for Economic and Cooperative Development, brought down these statistics in 2005. private healthcare insurance as a share of the total healthcare expenditure. They want to calculate how much in the healthcare expenditure can be attributable to private healthcare insurance. As you can see, the red line here is an average for OECD countries at 6.3. Now, South Africa is right there at the bottom, at the end, with the highest. We've even overtaken United States. As you can see, there is number 2. But this is OECD countries. So the WHO expanded this study to all the countries of the world with a population of more than 600,000 people. As you can see, the average for the world is here. The contribution of private healthcare insurance to the overall healthcare expenditure is 4% for the whole world on average. But South Africa is here. So we are actually the odd one out. We are doing something that nobody is doing. We have even overtaken USA. Botswana is number 2 to us, then Namibia and Brazil. These 5 countries, South Africa, Botswana, USA, Namibia, and Brazil, are called the top 5 by the WHO because they've exceeded 20%, as you can see. Only 5 countries have exceeded 5% of private healthcare insurance as a total or a percentage of the total healthcare expenditure. But South Africa is the odd one out, completely out of everybody's league. And that's why we're experiencing so many problems. In our healthcare system, we're doing something that nobody's doing. The World Health Report just says if these 3 things happen in your country, you won't get good outcomes. If your hospital, your healthcare is mostly curative and not preventative, you're not going to make it. If it's fragmented, you know it used to be fragmented into into 14 ethnic and racial groups. It's now fragmented into public and private. Number 2, uncontrolled commercialism. What I've shown you is uncontrolled commercialism of healthcare. Because if you take it to the stock exchange, it will be uncontrollable. You can't control the commerce there on the stock exchange by saying this is health. That's the problem we're having. Now, what are the solutions? What are the solutions? The World Health Organization has developed this cube to guide countries in moving towards universal health coverage. This cube here has got a length. That length represents the total in your population. It also has got a breadth. That represents the services that are being offered. It also has got a height. That is a proportion of the costs that are being covered. Each country must look into that and see where they fall in. In South Africa, the blue part will represent people on medical aid. They are not the whole population. Not all the services are covered. Not all the costs are paid for. If we do universal health coverage, we must fill the blank spaces. Cover the whole population. Cover all the services that are necessary and essential. And I'm repeating that, all that are essential and necessary, because some services are not necessary and essential. I'm sure you know that by now. Some services that people demand in health are not necessary and essential. Then cover all the costs. Don't tell the person that will pay this portion, you will pay the other portion. That's how they are guiding us. Now, with the prices I've shown, with the scenarios I've shown in South Africa, this scenario and the scenario I've shown here, and the prices that I've just demonstrated on the stock exchange and all that, with that scenario, if with that scenario, without changing it, we try to change this cube and move this way and move that way, then we'll need something like R1 trillion. Please understand me. Somebody the other day I was presenting to civil society, they said, NHI will cost R1 trillion. I am not saying it will cost R1 trillion, but it could if we expand that cube on the present prices in the platform, in the present way in which healthcare is provided. No country in the world has got that R1 trillion. Meaning what? We need a massive reorganization of the healthcare platform in the country, in both public and private. We need a massive reorganization, which we are going to use a concept from Harvard, which is called innovative disruption. Yes, we are going to disrupt everything that's happening in an innovative way. Please understand me. I'm not talking about toy disruption. I'm talking about innovative disruption where you change the laws, you change the policies, you change the manner in which things are done. In both public and private, they have to change. Otherwise, we won't be able to fill that cube. We won't fulfill what the World Organization is asking for us. We need to change drastically. And that means when you read the white paper, you are going to pick up all those changes where we say this must change, that must change. Now, as I told you, the white paper has got 10 chapters and about 400 sections. And if I have to, in the next 15 minutes, summarize it, because now I'm at the end of my presentation, but before I end, we have already established work streams for NHI. We have got 6 work streams there, as you can see. The first work stream is establishment of NHI fund. We need a work stream to put up an NHI fund starting from today. Now that the white paper has been accepted, we need that work stream. The work stream number 2 must work on the design of NHI service benefits. In other words, they must work on this breadth. What are the benefits that are essential and necessary for the country? That is what that task team is going to be doing. Service benefits. Which ones cannot be given by NHI, which ones can be. Then there's work stream 3, to prepare for the purchaser-provider split. It's a very important concept to understand. What is purchaser-provider split? It means the person who purchases the services and the one who provides them must be completely different people. At the moment, you know, in public health, in government, it's the same person. Treasury allocates money to the Department of Health. We provide the services, but we also purchase them. Meaning whatever you provide, even if it's not up to standard, because it's purchased by you, it doesn't matter, because you are the one who's going to purchase it. It's quite different from private hospitals. The private hospital know if they can't up their game, if they produce low quality, nobody's going to purchase from them. And that's why they are always on their tender hooks. In the public hospital, they know whether you perform or not, the budget is coming anyway. And you decide what to do with that. Now, even in the public hospitals, that purchaser-provider split is going to be very clear. It's going to be evident. The NHI fund will have within it a unit that purchases. If a public hospital doesn't perform, why should the NHI fund go to purchase services from them? Because those services are below standard. The purchaser will come and look and say, oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me try the other one. We can't, put your house in order. This and that is not working well in your hospital. Sorry, we are giving you a month, we'll come back again. In the meantime, you'll explain to the population why we can't purchase from you. It's your job to explain to them. And you will tell them that, no, your services are below standard. That is provider-purchaser split. Then there is the future role of medical schemes. What happened to medical schemes in the face of NHI, which is the pooling of funds for everybody? Oh, another sabotage. Every time I mention something very difficult, I can see there must be somebody behind this. Why is it switching off every time I mention something very, very impactful, Daddy? Oh, yeah. Okay. It was so easy, Sorry. Yes, there must be a future role of medical schemes. I can as well mention here, once NHI kicks in, I told you it's in 3 phases, especially in the last phase. Nobody could explain why medical schemes that are owned by government should still exist. The private ones will decide. But if we now have NHI, why should we have GEMS for public servants? Why should we have Parliament for police? Why should we have Parliament for members of Parliament and judges? They are all public servants, all of them. And so that's exactly our starting point. Why should we have some of our teachers on bonitas, etc.? But I'm not making a final statement. I'm just saying there ought to be a task team that is working on that. The medical schemes that still want to go on, or that should still go on, what will be their role if funds are pooled for the whole population. Then, completion of NHI policy and development of legislation. We need a new law, obviously. The National Health Act is not adequate for this. I've already shown you areas where we are going to have to drastically change laws of the country to fit in with the new system. That's why I'm saying it's a process of innovative disruption. Then, preparation for the district health system. The most important unit of providing health care is going to be the district, not the province. It has to be at the district level. That's where the people are. We are doing that simply because if you check South Africa, districts are so vastly different. If you put them in the same pot, you are going to miss it. The districts are so vastly different. I've just shown you the OR Tambo district. You can't compare it with Tshwane, for instance. You have seen how it looks like and the profile of diseases there. So the people who must purchase for that is the district, which means new laws must come in to have new districts that are capable, not the present ones, which are just some halfway stations toward the provincial government. The real district that must look and say, for me, in OR Tambo district, if we purchase services this way and this type of services, the population will improve immediately. And what we mean by improvement, we check child mortality, maternal mortality, overall mortality, etc., etc. So these task teams are going to be doing that work. I'm already giving you the names of the task teams here, the people who lead them. The one on establishment of NHI fund is led by Professor Dai McIntyre. I've already told you. The health economists who came with those graphs, they've got 2 full-time people and the others. As you can see at the end, we've got Dr. Joseph Kutsin from the World Organization. We want him to strengthen all the teams. In almost all the teams is there. Then we've got a team for design of NHI service benefits. The NHI service benefits is going to be one of the most difficult things to determine. And as you can see, we have got put many people, including the World Organization and including NICE from UK. NICE is that Institute for Excellence that determines service packages for the people in the UK. We want them to sit because we don't want to spend many years to reinvent the wheel. They've already been doing it for 67 years. So they know what it is, they know the pitfalls. We want them in that team so that we arrive at the solution as quick as possible. Then there is one team for purchaser provider split, I've already told you, led by Dr. Anban Pile, who's in the department, and there's the team there, but you can see WHO is still there. Then you have got the team on future medical scheme, headed by another health economist, and then there is the team there, WHO is still in. Then we have got the team on policy and development of NHI legislation, then a team on preparation of district health system. Those 2 people who are leading them are already working with the department. These are the task teams that are there, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the white paper itself, I've warned you that I can't go through the 400 sections. What I'm going to do is this. Johannes, is it possible that you have got can you scroll it? Are you having it there already on the, is it already sent on the website? Where's mine? Not yet. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I was promised that it will be on the website.
Can you set up the screen to be a dual? You see, it's running on a single process, which will duplicate. Do you want it to be one? Duplicate.
Have you given them this?
Version 40 again.
Yeah. Where? Okay. Yes. Now, why is it changing there? more, yeah. Tomaka section 1. It's very small. Yes.
So, yes.
But it's not on, oh gosh, it's not on the screen. Can you put it on the screen? Can you give them those papers in the meantime? Are you putting it on the screen? Okay. Yes, as you can see there, on the introduction of background, I've already given you that introduction. That is a health financing system that is designed to pool funds to provide access to quality, affordable personal health services.
Is it fine like this, or you need one screen?
I don't want those. I don't need them anyway.
Oh.
If it's fine, it's okay, but I don't need those. Yes.
Oh, or is it
Yes,
fine like
yes, yes. It's fine like this. Yes. I've already given you that in definition. The last line saying NHI is intended to ensure that the use of health services do not result in financial hardship for individuals and their families. The second line, this represents a substantial policy shift, I've already told you that, which will necessitate a massive reorganization of the current healthcare system, both public and private, and also derives its mandate from the national development plan of the country. I've already shown you why. How. NHI implementation is consistent with the Constitution. That is number 3 there, with the Constitution of the country. I want to emphasize that Section 27 of the Constitution, it says health is a right. Subsection 2 of that says the state must take reasonable or legislative or other methods within its available resources to achieve the progressive realization of this right. Progressive realizing this right will contribute to a healthy population. NHI is a policy shift which will contribute towards poverty reduction and addressing inequality. We are saying this issue is on the Constitution. We haven't done much about it. We are now going to do something about it in NHI. The implementation is a reflection of the kind of society we want to live in. It's a society based on values of justice, fairness, and social solidarity. And NHI is consistent with the global vision that healthcare should be seen as a social investment and therefore should not be subjected to market forces where it's treated as a normal commodity of trade. I've already explained to that. So maybe I can, I don't have to mention all this because I've already explained to them. I'll just choose those which I think are essential. So it means there's an ideological choice here. And we are saying on number 6 that in the current system of medical schemes, only those belonging to medical schemes have got access to both private and public health care. Only those belonging to medical scheme. Even they are usually denied access to health care before the end ends. I've already given my own example. Population coverage under NHI will ensure that all South Africans have access to comprehensive quality health care. Now, this section goes up to 23. At the end of it, you'll be understanding more or less what NHI is. The second section, yes, that's the end of it. The second one, give a historical background. I've already given you that background about the Freedom Charter, about the African claims, about the United Nations. I've already given you that. The third one, which is now chapter 2, is the features. What are the features of this NHI and what are the principles? I'm also not going to go to all of them, but the features I want to mention is that there will be universal access. All South Africans will have access to needed promotive, preventative, and complementary health. Number two, it's going to be mandatory. It's not voluntary. It's not like a medical aid scheme. It's mandatory prepayment for health for the whole population before the person is sick, and the services have to be comprehensive. And it must protect the population from financial risk, and it must be a single funder, not many funder, and it must be a strategic purchaser, and it must be a single payer. The principle there is that productive healthcare, the state must take reasonable legislative and other measures within its available resources to achieve the progressive realization of use of this right. No one shall be refused emergency medical treatment. Let me deal with that one. Emergency medical treatment. We have got private and public ambulances in South Africa. We are faced with a scene where if a private ambulance arrives at the scene of accident, the first thing they check is whether you have got a medical aid or you have got cash or you have got a credit card. If you don't have them, they don't take you. That, by the way, is illegal. We have not been doing anything about it. We are now going to do it. No ambulance is allowed to leave anybody on the road, no matter how poor they are. If they are going to leave them, then they must not run an ambulance service. So in one of the sections of NHI, in dealing with that, no one shall be refused emergency medical treatment. All ambulances in the country will have to be of the same color, regardless of who owns it. All ambulances, when you phone them, you are going to phone one common number for all emergency medical services. We are no longer going to have all these different numbers which you phone. It must be one number. And if any one of them responds on the scene as the first one, they must collect you. If they didn't, they've gone against the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. We are not saying they must collect you cash. Obviously, the NHI fund, once it's established, they must collect you free. We are not saying so. We're not saying they must be free, they must start running free ambulance services. We know the private ones are not doing so. But we are saying they can't leave anybody on the road, regardless of the circumstances. Because many people have arrived to hospital late or even died because they were left there on the road. And unfortunately, this is never exposed because mistakes are only seen if they are committed by the public health sector. It looks as if the private has got the right to commit all these mistakes and there's nothing wrong with them. So we are not going to allow that anymore. I just want to give that notice. That's what we mean by right to the access to health care. It's a right. It's not something that it's a privilege, and that right must be exercised. Then the principle of social solidarity, where we are saying the young must help the old, the rich must help the poor, and the healthy must help the sick. That's the basis on which pooling of funds work. And there must be equity, which the National Development Plan is also demanding. But the system must be affordable. It must be very affordable. This brings me to a question, which I know many of you wanted to hear. And I suspected if I mention it at the beginning, you were going to leave, you'll have got the answer you want. How much does the NHI cost? Is it affordable? Yes, I know many of you were waiting for that. Is it affordable? We have given you a document there, which is blue in color, from the World Health Organization to go and study. At the bottom right, it simply says summary. What will NHI cost? This is a wrong question, or at best an incomplete question. It will better to frame the costing question around the implications of different scenarios for implementing reforms towards universal health coverage. What the World Organization is saying here is many countries spend a lot of time trying to determine how much will NHI cost, and they can't arrive at that. For the simple reason that NHI will cost what you design it to be. It depends on how South Africa designs it. I want to emphasize that. If we want NHI to cost R1 trillion, it can easily do so. Easily. But if we decide that we don't have R1 trillion, but we can still have universal health coverage, you can do so. Maybe you'll ask me, how so? Let me give you the simplest example. I've just received documents from the Council of Medical Schemes here. I was asking them about the easiest surgical procedure. How much is it provided for? In the private hospitals, that easiest procedure, the circumcision, is provided for between 6,000 and 7,000 rand, just to do a medical male circumcision. PEPFAR, the American funder, is paying doctors to do a circumcision for 400 rand. That's PEPFAR. Some GPs are prepared to do a circumcision, even for a medical aid, for between 600 and 1,200 rand. But in private hospitals, 7,000. So if you want NHI to cost 7,000 rand per circumcision, you can decide so as South Africans. But we are saying the white paper will never allow that. That's why the World Organization said the matter is in your hands. Don't ask what NHI will cost. Design it and say we want NHI that will cost this much. That's the question of affordability. It's like a wedding. You can have a 1 million rand wedding if you so wish. Yes, you can have. But I can decide that I'm having a wedding for 50,000 rand. I suspect my marriage might be even more stable than yours for 1 million, for 50,000. But these are personal decisions, yes. You can decide that I want that, 1 million, 1 million. Another say, no, for 50,000 I can call people and have a wedding. That is how we must view NHI, and that is what we are going to do. We will design it in such a way that is affordable for the country, for people of the country afford. And believe you me, it will still be good health care. Nobody can convince me that the circumcision that is done for 7,000 rand is any different from the one done by a GP for 400 rand, as by PEPFAR. PEPFAR, as you know, is the American funder for HIV/AIDS. Why are they involved in circumcision? Because they are pushing their money towards prevention of HIV/AIDS, to make sure that in future we don't pay more for treatment. And for that reason, they've given 400 million for circumcisions. How in the same country, somebody who is a qualified medical practitioner can do a circumcision for 400, another one believes is 7,000. So it's in our hands. We must decide. And that's why we are not going to answer that question. The amount we have put here, which is on section 7 of this paper, white paper. Section 7 is the healthcare financing. The amounts we have put there are just preliminary projections. They are not exactly what NHI will go. We are just putting various scenarios. That's what the World Organization calls. We can't stand here and say we have calculated it will cost this much. Because on what basis are you determining that? On this exorbitant prices which I've shown you that we are not going to accept, on removing somebody's tooth for 20,000 rand instead of 200 rand, we can't. We can't. So the question, we agree with the World Health Organization. The other question which I understand you came to hear is, where do we get the money from? The sources of funding. That is also in chapter 7. Chapter 7 of this document deals with the issue of funding. But before going to chapter 7, chapter 6 of this document, I can't get the chapters fast enough, but chapter 6 deals with this reorganization. In it, you are going to see how public sector hospitals are going to run, what delegations are going to be given to CEOs of hospitals, because most of them don't have delegations. What powers will they have? You are going to see, which is also in the very first pages, in the very first paragraph, chapter. We are going to see that we are proposing that central hospitals must no longer be in provinces. They must be national competence, because these are national assets. And giving some form of autonomy. You know, Wits University, which is running Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital and Charlotte Maxeke, as a university, as an institution, they must have a lot of say. And some autonomy must be given to that on how they decide. One of the reasons is that these are world-class institutions which must compete with the best in the world. They are not able to compete under the present circumstances where they are restricted to provincial governance. At any rate, if there is NHI and people must use central hospital services, what will Northern Cape do? They don't have a central hospital. What will Limpopo do? What will Mpumalanga do? What will Northwest do? And every time I get phoned at 2 o'clock, No, this child needs urgent surgery, he's 2 years old from a central hospital in Gauteng. They can't take them because the province has not been paying. They've never paid for the past 6 months, etc. No, these are national assets which everybody can use, whereby even people who don't want to go to the very high 5-star private hospitals can go if we improve them. So it's going to be one of the proposals we make in terms of changing the platform of healthcare. So the most important issues there is, what are the delegations of the CEO? What are the governance structures? What do hospital boards do? If there's procurement, who does that procurement of equipment and services needed? It can no longer be done at the provincial level. That hospital must procure on their own. They are the ones who know what they need. They are the ones who know that we are about to run out of Panado. We are about to run out of needles. We are about to run out of syringes. We have got more bandage than we need. We can't order it. That must be ordered at their level. And there must be teams of specialists who decide that this is what we are going to order at this time, etc., etc. And all that is contained in chapter 6. And there are annexures which we are going to receive, which are actually emphasizing on that one. Now, chapter 7 is the document we have prepared with the Treasury about NHI funding. I must warn, it did not identify any source and say this will be the funding. They have just identified several methods of funding NHI, several possibilities, and they removed those that are not possibilities. And most of the possibilities are based on the present tax reform system, which is being done by Judge Dennis Davis. They are basing it on that and say when this document goes to the public for discussion, the public must look at the various scenarios and say, in this scenario, this is what will happen. In that scenario, yes, this is the chapter I'm talking about. I just want to show you a few. You can, Umban is gone. 257. Why just when I touch it? it disappears, but when you touch it, it doesn't. What wrong have I? What have I done wrong?
That's fine, you can't.
No, wait. We haven't, yes.
After this.
It's not moving now. It's doing something different. What is this? Yes, start it from the beginning. Put it here. Yes. Okay, this table here is going to be the most important table. We are indicating that we believe there's a lot of money all over the place in the country, which is for healthcare, starting with National Department of Health, core, provincial departments, the defense, the money in the defense system, in correctional services, in local government, the money in workmen's compensation, road accident fund, the Department of Education. Maybe you'll ask me, what is road accident fund and compensation? That amount of money there, 785 million, which will move to 1.4 billion in the financial 17-18. It's supposed to be money which is in the road accident fund, which is supposed to be for the health of individuals after they've claimed from the road accident fund. But that money is never used because after the road accident fund has given that money, which is pegged on private healthcare cost, they just collect it, leave it at home, and continue collecting their treatment in public hospitals, most of them, because it's never given to them directly. So those are the monies that we are going to pull together in public health, and it shows that by 17-18 it will be 193 billion. But it also shows that within private healthcare, that is the amount of money that is being collected. And you can see the total. Our estimates of NHI is that total of 399 by 2017-18 is not very far from what is needed to supply health for the whole country, provided we use it very effectively and very efficiently in terms of the new pricing regime, excluding these prices that are there. So we do believe there are monies all over. And people will then argue, but that private money is only private. The state every year pays 20 billion rand as a subsidy to medical aid scheme. That money comes from Treasury, but it's available for only people like me who have got medical aid. It's not available for the whole population. And we are saying those are the monies that we are going to target. The state pays tax, what do you call them, tax incentives? Yes, to the tune of 16 billion rand. That's tax incentives only for those who have joined medical aid. Our argument is that these people are already earning a salary. They can take care of themselves. But they still get 20 billion rand to subsidize them. They still get tax incentives of about 16 billion rand. All those monies will have to be brought together and say, how do we save the total population? We are aware that medical schemes have got reserve funds according to the law. And we also want to review that. Why should the law force them to have that 25% in reserve? Because they are not really a life insurance, they are short term. This is what is described in that paragraph, that there are lots of monies that are lying all around. And that is what is being shown on that table. We are going to decide to put them together. But the most important thing we are going to do as a start of NHI, we are going to pull together all the monies that are in primary health care all over the country. And according to our estimate at the moment, we have already got 50 billion rand in primary health care. The national, the fund, the NHI fund, I mean to say, is going to pull all that money. Our beginning, as we said, will start at the bottom, is to purchase services for primary health care. An example I can give is this. What do we mean by buying services for primary health care? We have just completed screening school kids in Quintile 1 and Quintile 2 schools. These are the poorest schools. We have screened them for physical barriers to learning, eyesight, hearing, and oral hygiene. And 1/3 of those school-going kids have got either of these three problems. Either they've got a problem of eyesight, problem of hearing, or problem of speech. What do they need? Optometrist, audiologist, speech therapist. Where are they? All in the private sector. What does it mean? I've got a child at school who I know is not going to pass at all because they've got problem of speech. There's a child at school who I know is not going to pass because can't hear. But because the parents are poor, that cannot be corrected because the people who are able to correct this are in the private sector. So that NHI Primary Health Care Fund is going to buy those services. We need to go to an audiologist and say there are so many kids at school who need your services. They can't hear very well. Please go and help them. And that audiologist will go and they'll be paid from NHI fund. We ought to be able to go to a speech therapist and say so many kids are struggling to pronounce. This is what we found from them. Please go and help them. They are in such and such school. This is their number, and we are going to reimburse you from the NHI fund. That's going to be the beginning of the whole process of NHI. Meaning what? We are starting at primary health care because one of the paragraphs here will show you that primary health care is going to be the heartbeat of the healthcare services. The other area I want to mention, which is very abnormal in South Africa, you are going to see it here. Some years back, when I was still a medical student, nobody, I'm repeating, no patient was allowed to go and see a specialist directly. They always started with GPs or at primary health care level. That has changed in South Africa. People wake up, they go straight to a central hospital or a specialist. Just go to England and try that. They'll tell you, no, it doesn't work because NHS won't allow it. Why doesn't it work? It's extremely expensive. It can't be allowed. I am trying to check when was it done, when was the law changed in South Africa and who changed it. I'm unable to get that answer, but it has changed. In the NHI, we are proposing that people must go and start at primary health care level. Meaning what? They must start with GPs. And the simple things that GPs can do won't be expensive. They only go up if they are referred. If they are using the public health sector, they can't start at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, the biggest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere. That is at a very high level. They must start somewhere at the bottom. And that's why the bottom will have to be improved. We have given you a document on Ideal Clinic. That Ideal Clinic is going to show what the clinic must look like for people to start services at it. In the legal profession, nobody goes straight to senior counsel. They start with attorneys, and it's very affordable. And we don't understand why the healthcare system has changed, where people start services at the top. In the legal profession, you can't do that. If somebody steals your goat, you look for an attorney in the village, you go to the magistrate office. We even have small claims court. The South African healthcare system is extremely expensive because health has changed that into starting at the top. Every small thing must be solved by a professor. Every small thing must be solved by a super specialist. That specialist has trained for 15 years, and they want to be paid for that. I just gave you an example of circumcision. Why is 7,000? We've discovered that is done by a urologist, plus a senior anesthetist, plus a senior medical officer, not even an intern, and it becomes 7,000 rand when anybody can do it. And believe you me, I can still do a circumcision. I don't think it will differ anywhere from the one done by a specialist. There's no way because it's not a complicated procedure. So these are some of the things that we are proposing, and we believe they will bring affordability within the reach of the South African healthcare system. So let me finish by saying, I think I should not keep on harping to these things which we have not seen, because if I start scrolling there, it takes a lot of time. I have given you enough background and enough framework. Go and read that document. If you want us to call another press conference where you are going to fire us with questions, we'll do so. Not that I'm not taking questions today, I will take them. But I'm saying you are restricted because you have not yet studied and read our documents. Go and read and study them and get your analysts and your experts, because I know there are certain people who have given a title of experts, even if you don't know where their expertise come from. Go and get them and analyze and write questions down. Yes, I know. Usually when a person opposes government, it's called an expert. Those who are very good and agree with something government, they are never called experts. Like Professor Di McIntyre, she will never be called an expert by you, because most of the things she agrees with us, even though she's a health economist. The expert is a non-health economist who will come and say, no, this is rubbish. Then you'll see on the media, experts say what Muzwaledi was talking about is rubbish. Yes, it usually happens that way. When the Free Market Foundation comes and say this is rubbish, he's talking nonsense, you won't say, but the World Organization says what you are doing does not make sense even economically. Even the same economics that the Free Market Foundation wants, it doesn't make sense. So I want to come so that you take me up on questions after you have read the document. But for now, you can still take us up. We'll try to answer as many as you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Question and answer session. Let's start. You two are banned. You can't laugh. Okay, let's take questions. I'm not sure whether Cape Town people are still there. But
yes.
Let's start with...
We've got two questions, Joe.
Any question?
Joe, we've
Other?
got two questions in Cape Town.
You'll be first. Any other? Okay, there's only one question.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not used to dealing with microphones and equipment in television. Teresa Taylor from ENCA. Minister, I just wanted to ask, you didn't speak, you just talked about, increasing the level of GPs and having more of a focus on them, but you didn't talk much about engagement with doctors, specialists. I mean, a lot of people would say, perhaps if we tell doctors, look, you're going to earn a specialist, you're going to earn a tenth of what you earned before. These people are just maybe going to leave the country, or they're going to refuse to provide these services. Are we in a position to play hardball with doctors when we have a shortage of doctors in the country? So just to hear a bit more about what your engagements with the medical profession has been. Secondly, given, you talked about a lot of these companies are listed on the JSE, there's very important money, there's big money behind this. Are you concerned about sabotage, perhaps, of your efforts by the private sector? I mean, I have seen reports of people saying, I'm putting together a low-cost hospital system for when the NHI fails. So are you concerned that perhaps some of these people with a vested interest will try to sabotage your efforts? Thank you.
Teresa, let me assure you, NHI is not going to fail, because we have got no option. We can't make it fail. There's no better way of providing health. And all sorts of systems are going to be put around to help NHI. I've already shown you the World Health Organization, the United Nations itself, because it's part of the Sustainable Development Goals. And they said, unlike the Millennium Development Goals, they are going to be monitoring them continuously. So we are going to have help from United Nations. Even the World Bank, the president of the World Bank has already announced that the World Bank is going to establish a special unit to help countries, especially in developing countries, to implement NHI, a special unit of experts about what to do and what not to do. So we have got the whole world standing up on this system and being very determined. But it's not that we have got any option. And I'm not sure the sabotage you are talking about is already happening. It's already happening now under the present system without NHI. If you go to IDC or National Empowerment Fund or PRC, they will complain about one thing. The new license they give for smaller hospitals that are not expensive are being sabotaged by the big ones. They buy them out, they do all. I don't want to give names, but even the Competition Commission has complained to me about it, that they don't allow anybody, especially, for instance, in the Western Cape, there are lots of people who wanted to establish day hospitals that will be affordable. Because most of the time you are charged for sleeping overnight when you don't have to. And there's already a high degree of sabotage with court cases or with buying out. It's also happening in mining, by the way. There are small mining companies which are given a license. The next one, there's a big boss who comes in and buy the license for 50 million, and you get tempted and they give it to you. That is also happening. I know many blacks who are being given licenses to build private hospitals, and the next moment, the license is changed over. Part of the reason being that the criteria for giving private hospital licenses are in the provinces are different, and we are going to put them right from the beginning. Maybe you are reminding me. There is a section here that deals with the register of needs. You remember we once withdrew the register of needs. Yes, the certificate of need, not register, sorry. Certificate of need. We're going to bring it back. But we are not bringing it back in the old form which made us withdraw it, because the old form was absolutely not appropriate. It was talking about punishing people and all that. This is not punishing. We are going to say, if we give you a license, these are the conditions under which you must work. If you say you must be able to take care of school kids when they need eyesight, etc., don't tell me it's going to cost R1 billion when I know you can do it cheaper. Then why should you be given a license? Now, your next question is, are we taking up doctors when we've got a shortage? I'm not sure why we say we are taking them up. We are just doing what is right, which the whole world is doing. I've just shown you that the things that are happening in South Africa are not happening anywhere. It can't be that we are the only country where when you do the right things, all the doctors leave. Yet when all the other countries do the right thing, doctors don't leave. When Britain started NHS, there was a threat from doctors, yes, who said they will leave, but they never did. Immediately after that, every government that comes into being reviews it and discover that they've got nothing else, which is better than NHI. You can check every Labour Party government or Conservative Party that comes in. They review NHI. They can NHS. They can just tweak it here and there. So I am not taking up doctors. I'm not challenging them. I'm just doing the right thing for the population in terms of the type of society we want to live in terms of what the United Nations itself said. If you saw those declarations from United Nations, that says we are ushering in a new life for everybody around the planet, and we are studying from those who are furthest from behind. That's basically what I'm doing. Now, the reason that I'm not taking much of specialists is because NHI is going to be in 3 phases. The first phase in which we are is the piloting phase and the white paper as we have done it, studying the buildings, putting up structures, etc. The second phase, which is going to take another 5 years, will be putting up NHI teams, as I've shown here, like the NHI fund, the purchasing team, the negotiations team, all sorts of teams which you will find in the white paper. You are going to find to be doing that in the second phase, the changing of governance of hospitals. Who must govern a hospital? What are the delegations? Who must procure goods and services for that hospital? It should no longer happen in a provincial political office. It must happen at the hospital level, because that's where the needs are. All those things will be happening in the first 5 years. The contracting of private hospitals and specialists will be in the last 4 years only. The people who are contracting in the next 5 years now will be service providers at non-specialist level, meaning what? Meaning GPs, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, audiologists, optometrists, psychologists, all that the people what people need at the primary health care level. That is the first level of purchasing. But even when you purchase those, we demand prices that are reasonable and human, not what I've just shown you. Then only in the last 4 years, we then start moving over to the private hospitals and specialists and saying this is the procurement model, this is the model of contracting which you must do with you. That's why we are saying we are starting at the primary health care level. So at the higher level of specialists and private hospital, it will still be status quo. They'll still be doing what they are doing. But remember, even the pricing might change. Why? Because there is a pricing, a commission headed by a market inquiry about the cost of private health care. Their recommendations might even change, even before NHI kicks in, if they come across a conclusion that is too expensive. But if they say nothing is expensive, NHI will have a right to determine its own prices. That's how NHI runs. If I say we can only pay 400 rand for a circumcision, we stop there. That's not a challenge to doctors. We are telling them it's possible because we know doctors are doing it right now as I'm sitting here. In fact, Teresa, for your information, I was questioned by captains of industry. I called captains of industry in Secunda because you know that what's happening in Secunda, Gertibande, the highest level of HIV/AIDS is there, followed by TB. It's very high. It's the highest in the country now. And I was telling them that the mines, companies like Sasol, etc., are going to collapse. There's no economic growth when people are sick and dying in such numbers. I said, and my fear was 40% of the power of the country, electrical power of the country, comes from that area, Gertibande. For your information, 40%. I said very soon the power of the country will be collapsing because where it's produced, everybody is sick. Let us sit together to see how we treat these people together. So I called all these captains of industry. I took them through a presentation about HIV and AIDS. First question to me was, and it came from the principal officer of Sasol Med. He said, Minister, I've got 80,000 people on Sasol medical aid scheme. I'm prepared to circumcise all of them, as you say, it prevents HIV/AIDS. But we are being charged 6,000 rand. Yes. He said, we are being charged 6,000 rand on my medical scheme. You want to circumcise 4 million men. Do you know how much that is going to cost? Why can't you make rules that circumcision must cost what other doctors are doing for? Where is the 6,000 came from? So it was a captain of industry telling me so. Then the next question, they said, Minister, we have just put many South Africans on ARVs, the fixed dose combination. At that time, it was 89 rand per person per month. He said, on my medical aid scheme in the private sector, they charge me 400 rand per person per month. But in the public sector, it's 89 rand. What such huge differences? It's the same commodity, it's the same drug. Why is somebody selling it for 400? When they come from the same pharmaceutical company, by the way. It is the pharmaceutical company that supplies them. Why, when I'm in the private sector, they suddenly say 400 rand? Some doctors just increase the price when they hear you are on medical aid. When you say, no, I'm going to pay cash, they said, no, we can take it lower. Why is it that when you are on medical aid, they believe there's a lot of money? Lastly, Teresa, the reason that people are running, as you say, to say we are building medical hospitals for NHI, is their complete misunderstanding of NHI. People have calculated that NHI is a pot of gold. You just have to place yourself strategically. You are going to harvest. You are going to mine that gold. And I'm here to announce to them there's no pot of gold here. NHI is not about that. It's not about enriching people. It's about providing healthcare services to the whole population. Why do they think it's a pot of gold? Because of the graphs I've shown you. You remember those profits, etc., that are being accumulated wrongly. Everybody believes we are going to run NHI like that. And I'm announcing to you, no, it's not going to happen. We are going to design it to be affordable. As the World Health Organization told us so, that the issue of affordability is in your hand. If you want an expensive system, you can have it. If you want an affordable system, you can have it. That is not challenging doctors. I'm not challenging them at all, but if they believe they are being challenged and they threaten that they will pack their things and go, it's a pity. That's not what I'm saying. It will be their choice. But we can't allow this system. I've shown you we're the odd one out on everything. We can't allow this to go on to be doing something different from what the world is doing. How does a country like us even challenge the mighty America in pricing healthcare? A country whose economy is 22 times our economy, if I'm not mistaken. Is it 22 or 32? Who is an economist here? The GDP in America, is it 22 or 32 times ours? How do we challenge them in pricing? It's just all wrong. And if we change that and doctors say you are challenging us, it's a great pity. We just want to normalize the country. It has gone extremely abnormal. Very, very abnormal. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question at the back. Yes. Yeah.
Put the mic on, Sissy.
Thanks. My name's Pat Sidley, and I'm from the Daily Maverick today. And I wanted to know, you've touched on it, but I wanted to know what the relationship is with the market inquiry. And how you will be affected by whatever comes out of the market inquiry, or how it would be affected by what you do.
Any other question? Pretoria? Cape Town, is there any question?
Yes, we've got two, Joe.
Let's deal with them.
Hi, Kerry Cullinan from Health E-News. Simple question. We have pilot districts at the moment. Are those going to be now expanded to all districts to